It was simply a dream weekend for all the drivers of the 8th edition of Peter Otto's Spa Classic. A weekend where racing and lapping alternated on the most beautiful circuit in the whole world. That is the reputation of Spa-Francorchamps. Why do you ask? Take a racing track, place it in the Belgian Ardennes, just like an exquisite necklace in a beautiful jewelry case. Add a sunny weekend in May, and you get one of the prettiest scenes in Europe. Then, from a driver's perspective, you're talking about one of the faster, exciting circuits. In Spa, it's foot on the throttle and hands on the wheel. Whatever the car or the driver's ability, everyone seems to agree on that.
I mean, Spa is obviously one of the iconic circuits, Formula One circuits, tremendous history.
We just enjoy the atmosphere. Spa is a great circuit.
Oh, it's a wonderful circuit. Last week already I was in Monaco, and so you see these circuits are mythical.
It's such a great place to drive a car like this, because they were raced here by the likes of Derek Bell and Jackie Hicks and people like that when they were current cars, and the circuit's still a fantastic circuit for these cars.
Oh, it's magical. We know it every year we're here. It's great, whether in the 60s series or another. Yeah, there's nothing else than Spa. It's exceptional. No words can describe it. Great atmosphere. Yeah, just great. Spa has a history, one that goes back to 1920, and tens of thousands of cars have since then worn down the tarmac. It's only logical that Peter Otto's team have turned the Spa Classic into one of their main meetings. 345 cars took part in 8 different series, every one of them highlighting automotive history. One of Patrick Pete's capabilities is his ability to make something new out of something old. The 2-litre Cup is a perfect example. Showcasing for the first time in Spa, its success was consolidated with 20 cars enrolled. No modern championship could boast such immediate success. It's the first historical monotype series we've launched. It's a specific series dedicated to the pre-66 2-litre Porsches 911. The idea is simple and self-explanatory. The short wheelbase 911, though value has never stopped inflating, hitting €180,000, remains an easy find on the market. It's very reliable and parts are easy to come by, making it easy to run.
Of course, it has a race engine, suspension, slightly better brakes, but it's basically a very simple little racing car. About 200 brake horsepower, minimum weight, all the same for all the cars.
And then the 2-litre Cup is a driver's series. They make the difference, not the car. That is also entirely new in the Peter Otto series. Oh, first and foremost, we're all competitors, so no one gives his doggy bone or his podium to someone else. You know, we're here to fight it out.
It's beautiful. It's driving on one hand, but it's balancing. It's like dancing on the other hand, so it's great.
Porsches are cars that really breathe. You get a real feel for it, you know, in your body and so forth. When you finish the race and get out of the car, you're just ecstatic. The Porsche's race was the highlight and closed the meeting, but we'll get back to that later. Let's jump a mile. From the Porsche 911s, let's go to the most powerful and fast cars at the Spa Classic. The latest Le Mans prototypes before the electronic and sequential gearbox age took over. Big boys cars, driven with sweat and muscle. The flagship of them all is probably the Jaguar XJR14, world champion in 1991. 750 kilograms, a 660 brake horsepower V8, making it a dressed-up Formula One car. Drawn and driven by Ross Brown, the famous engineer at Mercedes, who back in the day created this Group C in the most extreme rules. to win the World Championship, but not to win the 24-hour Le Mans. It's almost an F1 with a body on it. Talking about Formula One, Zak Brown, McLaren's boss, was also at the Spa Classic at the wheel of a Group C Porsche and a Ford Capri. Brown is passionate about historic racing.
You know, all the cars I have are based off cars I grew up watching, idolizing, so I always used to have the small version. Now I'm fortunate enough to have the big version.
Both Group C lineups were very well represented this year, to Patrick Peters' delight. I think we found the right balance. Not too much racing, but lots of competitors, 33 or 34 in Spa. We're expecting over 50 in Le Mans Classic. It's a good sign. With Le Mans Classic up on the horizon beginning of July, drivers came to warm up in Spa, unlike the WEC World Championship a few weeks earlier. The racing was competitive. The first heat is Steve Tandy's Inner Spice. The next day, though, the Brit's luck runs out. His engine breaks and a fire, though not fatal, prevents him from finishing a race he's been leading from the start, giving Lecour and Narak a victory on a Porsche 962, followed a few seconds later by another Porsche driven by Vercouteren and Kelleners. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic, driving one of these cars. And I want to thank Michel for thinking of me. And I thank Raymond that's driving with me. We're faster. We're completely ready for the Mans Classique. The Group C's success is self-evident and opens up possibilities for the future. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we got to spot a couple of cars we are not in the habit of seeing in the Peter Auto series, such as this 2001 Bentley Speed 8.
The car did all of the pre-testing, Paul Ricard and everything, and then it went to Le Mans for the test weekend, and then Bentley have still got the number one car and the number two car that came first and second, and I was lucky enough to get the donkey, as it was. There is only three, and there's only one in private hands, which is mine, and so therefore it makes it super special. And every time it comes out, it's going to come out, there'll be a huge crowd and people love to see it on the track.
The Global Endurance was showcasing in Spa. Other than the Bentley, one could also admire this stunning Viper with an impressive racing pedigree. The Global Endurance will also be showcasing on July 7th at Le Mans Classic. Cars taking part in this series are the direct descendants of the Classic Endurance ones, the most heated series of these meetings. No doubt that one day the Global Endurance cars will be as popular as the immensely popular Classic Endurance ones. The most iconic racing cars can be found in this pool. This Porsche 910 or Carrera 10, for example, only 15 of these were built between 66 and 67.
That the Porsche 910 was the first proper race car Porsche did. In 66, when Ferdinand Piëch came to the Porsche factory, this was his first car he produced.
The 910 has almost won every single major race. This one, for example, won the 67 12-hour Sebring. Everything except Le Mans, where the Ford GT40s ruled back in the days. In CER1, these machines still race each other. But these olfactory cars, such as Emmanuel Pirot's beautiful Alfa 33 or Carlo Monteverde's Ferrari 512, are delicate machines, and without the armada of technicians to take care of them, they remain fragile. Back in the days, in the Classic Endurance series, cars built for private owners were usually more successful, and today is no exception, with a podium for Brewweiler's Chevron and Lecour and Narak's Porsche RSR and GT. cars in the CER2 heat are 10 years younger. They are also some stunning machines. It's even become a specialty for some owners. Get a rare car and bring it back to life on a track for a weekend. Xavier Micheron is one of those eccentric collectors, and in Spa, he brought his latest project, a 1981 Lola T600. It's a very particular car, as it's the first wing car prototype. It was in the World Endurance Championships, in particular at Le Mans. It's the return of a very unique car that sets the foundations for the Group C. So historically, it's a very important car. This one certainly made headlines in its day. The Ferrari 512 BBLM, a GT with a prototype feel designed for Le Mans straights. This particular one almost never saw the light of day. Soon after the end of production, if we can call it production, there were 24 made, this is the 25th, made by the Francorchamps garage, well, the factory, but built by the Francorchamps garage for an American client. For its first race, the BBLM, well driven by Jeremy Lanquert and Christophe Van Riet, gets a 7th place in the general ranking and wins the GT. In the general ranking, a spectacular battle in the front between Dominique Guénaz's Lola and Marc de Vries' Toge saw a 1.6-second victory of the Toge. The spectators came all the way to Spa to see just this kind of racing. We see all generations, children, parents, grandparents. They come to see loads of old-timers. And passion for old-timers still remains. That's really interesting. Yes, it's my son. He helps me prepare it and rides with me in the car once in a while. Spectacular. Ferrari, Porsche, Chevron. But more to the point, absolute motorsport celebration. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you all. Ciao. Racing is one thing. In the paddocks, though, one can get really close to the cars and get a feel of the bustling atmosphere. The village too attracts many fans. Hats definitely sold out the umbrellas this year. Club cars can also be looked at inside the paddock. 1,200 of them this year, sometimes even displayed by constructor or even model. I love the line, very elegant. That's why I like the 412. In '86, when it came out, the magazine Sport Auto featured it. And there was a picture of it taken from the rear in the fog, with its fog lights on. Yeah, I don't know. Something in me happened. The biggest club this year made the BMW fans very happy. They all conveyed to the turn at the source. As all other members of the clubs, they got to drive on the circuit throughout the weekend.
Il m'a demandé si je rodais ma voiture. Je dis non, je suis à fond.
Marie-Claude and Charles are not in Spa for a holiday. For 30 years now, their life revolves around competition in classic cars. She drives a 911 and he drives a Cobra. Yeah, it brings us together. If I stayed home and he raced and talked about it all the time, well, I wouldn't understand anything and he'd bore me out of my mind. So, yes, it does bring us together.
ça rapproche beaucoup.
I try not to overcoach because it's rather delicate in a couple. Best to avoid certain topics. That way we stay good friends. The Cobra jet fighters mostly dominated the trials in the 60s category, a class for the iconic cars that raced in the 60s endurance races. 7 Shelby Cobras in the first 7 grid positions and a pole for local Christophe Van Riet. The 2-hour race, the longest one of the meeting, starts off with an intensive American battle up front and a getaway from Van Riet. On the 6th lap, though, the race is halted by the safety car as Hocking and Isaacs Abarth Simca crashes and catches fire, requiring a long intervention from the security services. In the 60s heat, we find numerous Shelbys, Jaguars, a couple of Porsches and Lotuses. More exotic cars like TVRs, hand-built like only the British can. The most powerful one, a Griffith, driven by Lindbergh and Knapton, is in the top 10 at half race just before a driver changeover and a refuel.
The car's been owned for quite a while, and we've decided to start racing this car. It should be a competitive car. So we're just finding our feet with it this weekend.
Harnessing the same V8 Ford engine as the Shelby Cobras, the Griffith is very competitive, finishing 14th in Spa for its first ever race in the series. The Cobras take over the first 6 places and Christophe Van Riet takes the win. It's a great race, about 90 cars on the grid, lots of traffic, but it's great. Loads of different models, funny to see the differences. Beautiful images, especially at night with the exhaust flames. Yeah, great. For Christophe and others though, there's no time to spare. They are also in the most iconic race in the Spa Classic, the evening race for HTC cars. Ford Capri, BMW CSL, Chevrolet Camaro, these names alone are synonymous with the great European Tourist Championships of the 70s and 80s, as well as the 24 Hours of Francorchamps. The first race of the Spa Classic takes place at night, reinforcing even more the legend. And more so when the Capri Belga gets onto the track. Yes, as a Belgian, in this home circuit, it does take on a particular meaning. For the Belgians, Belga helped a lot. There was a huge fight between Belga and Bastos at the time, the heyday of Belgian motorsport. Well, I was born in '78 and I was probably conceived in a Capri. In the Bormann family, the Capri seems to be inspirational as Raphael wins the first leg in his category. Christian Traber wins the night race in his beautiful 3-litre CSL with the BMW Motorsport colours.
The BMW wins here is good because always the Ford Capri win normally. So it's good for to remember the 70s, you know, the great days of the Spa-Francorchamps 24 hours, you know.
Pouce devant pour la rangée devant, c'est parti.
And when the HTC drivers finish their night racing, they conglomerate at the foot of the Rédillon and celebrate at the very Spa Classic 60s Gala. HTC drivers go at it again on Sunday in broad daylight, playing out the same scenario with a great duel between BMW and Ford. Victory again for Traber in front of Zach Brown in Richard Dean's Capri. Steve Dance takes third place. In HTC, behind the wheel of his BMW 2002 is the German Claudia Hürtgen, a GT and DTM specialist. Driving a BMW 2002 at the Spa Classic is a childhood dream come true.
So I was here with my father when he drove also the 2002 here on the oil track in Spa. And so when we arrived in the morning with my father, there were a lot of talk about for before 40 years here, the track, and now. So it's one of my favorite track here in Spa.
More and more women enter the Peter Tour series regardless of the events. Gabby van Oppenheim is not afraid to get behind the wheel of a delicate 1959 Oscar for the greatest trophy series, a race for exceptional cars of the 50s and 60s.
It almost does 200, and on the top speed there, it's, you get scared. It's very long, as you can see, so it's very difficult to turn in the turns because you have to move the whole body around. It's also very narrow, so it drifts. It has no differential in the back, so you really have to make sure you come out of the turns. But once the tires get grip, it's really magnificent because it's very strong, but it's also extremely noisy.
The driver's fair play and total respect for the mechanical components reflects the spirit of this series. What a pity it would be indeed to break one of these models. A 1965 Bizzarini 5300 GT. A 1962 Ferrari 250 short wheelbase. A 1960s Alfa Romeo Giulietta SZ. 1963 Ferrari 250 GT Drogo. A 1952 Aston Martin DB2 Vantage. 1963 lightweight Jag E-Type. A 1966 Ferrari 275 GT-BC. The latter two fought for the first place. Vincent Gay and Carlos Monteverde both win a leg each. Grid start for the only single-seater race at the Spa Classic, the Formula 2s. Between 67 and 78, Formula 2 had a European championship with cars quite similar to the Formula 1s of the day. It was not uncommon to see F1 drivers race in F2.
They're very light, they have a lot of grip. Power and grip is in balance, very delicate and very, very quick. So it's a fantastic feeling. They're really exciting cars to drive.
Mr. Pink is enthusiastic, as are all the other participants for both heats in Spa, during which Matthew Watts wins twice on a March 772. Charles Veillard on a Ralt and Martin Stretton on another March give him a run for his money. In F2, tenths of seconds separate most of them. We started the Spa Classic with the 2-litre Cup and ended the weekend with the short-based Porsches. One hour and a half of racing, the first of its kind of the 2-litre Cup series, was highly expected and gave us a formidable show for the first 45 minutes. Then came the typical Spa weather turn, and the gloomy sky turned the circuit into a slippery pool of water, forcing a race stop. The storm only comforted us in the idea that a real racing weekend at Spa wouldn't be the same without a storm. For the record, Andrew Smith and Oliver Bryant will be the first winners of the 2-litre Cup. But above all, the 8th edition of the Spa Classic was, yet again, a great success.